Hello, gentlemen. You don't know me, but I know you. You both play games with other people for a living. But today, you play a game for your lives. Right now, you are both breathing in a deadly nerve gas. You have 120 seconds to reach the antidote, or you die.
Oh my God, how are we gonna get out of here?
Let the game begin.
Ah! This will never work. Of course, he wants us to cut through our feet. You go first. Bullshit.
Hello and welcome to What Makes It Scary, a seasonal podcast unleashing the fear behind your favorite and not so favorite horror movies. I'm your host, Jody Henderson of Clever Girl Effects Studios, and with me I have the incredible Alex Vincent of Mr. Ed Productions.
Also, host, co-host, with the co-most.
No.
No? Okay, well.
Meh, I haven't given you that title yet.
I'm just here. You're the host.
Yep.
And I'm with
Hostess.
you.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I have a question for you, my guest on this podcast.
Okay, yeah, I would love to hear it. I'm sure it's not going to be anything too horrific and terrible. Just hit me. I'd love to answer it for you.
I'm going to ask you, do you want to play a game?
Oh, no! Where am I?
You are now in a Saw trap.
Oh, that's
Saw, that's what we're talking about this week, guys.
Do you want to play? You already said that, didn't you? I was listening. Go on.
Do I want to play a game?
I was going to say that, yeah.
Wow, yes. Okay, Saw. It literally took over a decade. It took it over. A movie came out every effing year of a whole decade.
When you say took over a decade, you mean took over a decade, not took over a decade. Wait.
Both.
Which is what?
Literally both.
Yes. Both of those things are true. My mind was confused about what you're talking about. What is wrong with me in this episode?
I have no idea. We have 9 Saw movies?
Eight. There were 7 originally, then Jigsaw.
Alrighty. Well, for those of you who have never seen a Saw movie before, you're going to be way, way, way confused. I suggest that you go and at least just watch some recaps of it. But I find it hard to ever find somebody who's never watched these movies. Because it's like a game changer in horror.
Yeah, for sure. Some of the something that I was going to say about this is we'll talk, I think, a little bit about our history with it, but the Saw movies defined the 2000s the way that like Eminem and Dave Chappelle did. Like I kind of like group those 3 things as like something that
what odd things.
I know, right?
Group.
Well, particularly like my older cousins were into, and like I view these movies as being aimed at high school seniors from the mid to late 2000s. Like that is my like go-to demographic for the Saw movies. And despite me being no longer a high school senior, I would also consider myself that demographic. I love the Saw movies.
I do too.
I'm a huge fan.
My best friend and I, my senior year, in high school, we were in a speech class together, and we both chose movies to do as our 10-minute speech had to be about something that, you know, we knew a lot about and whatever. And mine, of course, was like Jurassic Park, and hers was Saw.
Yeah.
And
I think you talked about that.
And so we watched, at that time, I believe there were only 5 movies out.
Sure.
At that time. So we watched those first 5 movies because she hadn't seen all of them either, so she wanted to do like some more research.
Yeah.
And so that definitely, I love Saw. It gets to me.
It does. It's very effective. And I'll talk a lot about what makes it scary.
Well, we can talk about kind of what makes it scary because we were literally put in a Saw situation.
Yes. We should very quickly clarify, this was an escape room.
Yes.
That was modeled after the Saw
franchise,
movies.
yes.
Yeah. And I thought it was just going to be kind of the idea of a dark, creepy thing, and it was like medical and like mutilate-y, but no, it had like the pig head, it had the Jigsaw mask.
No, this was legit
themed off of Saw. I really enjoyed that a lot.
So I knew this room existed, and I knew we were going to be filming this episode of the podcast, and I was like, okay, we're going to do it. We're going to go.
Yeah.
And the group of people we normally do the rooms with, I was like, okay, I feel safe that they would protect
be around
me
you
if something happened. I was still so terrified to do this.
You were, in the weeks leading up to this, you went through like a wave of a roller coaster of, I'll be fine. Like, I'm not going to be that scared at all. And you were like, how am I going to do this? I'm not going to sleep for weeks.
Yeah.
And then you were like, no, I think I'll be fine. I can't do it.
Yeah, so. I'd be fine all day, and then I'd wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning and be like, what if this?
No.
What if that? What if, ugh, and I like just couldn't do it. So we get there, I'm hella nervous, and there's the two people who are running our game.
Yeah.
And I just, we're just talking because we're waiting for the rest of our group to show up, and I'm like, yeah, I'm really nervous. And apparently the man who designed this room had never seen an episode or a movie of Saw.
Right.
Which is very weird.
Episode is probably the right word to say with this series because it's so much like a TV show. But yeah, he hadn't seen anyone, but it was still pretty faithful. It was very, There definitely were things where I was like...
Not really,
yeah, if he had seen it, I could imagine just different decisions being made, but it was still pretty, like the heart on the toilet seat was there, which is interesting. He must have heard about that.
It's just kind of, some of that stuff is just in pop culture.
Like the mask, like everybody knows.
Right.
The Billy the Puppet.
Yeah. So we get handcuffed and we get blindfolded.
Right.
To be taken into the room.
Yeah.
I'm literally like shaking.
Yeah.
And you weren't even standing next to me. You were like way down the line.
You were with your other friends who you were like gripped to.
Yeah, because we had to walk in a conga line to like get in there. And I didn't know I was like squeezing Deanna's neck. And she's like, you can't squeeze me so tight. And I was like, I'm sorry. So like they get in there and they're like, okay, everybody put your hands on the wall to your right. And, and then they're like, okay, we're going to start the game. They're like, which is, very different from any other escape room that we've had. There's no clock.
Oh, right.
To count down the time for you. And there's no screen that's, if you needed a hint, they normally would just type it on there and it would pop up on the screen. This one we have, Jiggy was his name.
Yeah.
And that, he would talk to you and he wasn't very nice and he would tell you your clues and that type of thing. So, we can start our game. He tells us we can take off our blindfolds and we're in just this kind of room with a bunch of pipes on it and that type of thing.
Right. Well, we ended up it was kind of like this hallway, and you end up opening a door to another room, which is kind of like the bathroom from the first movie.
Which is the two characters who are chained.
Yeah.
To.
Are we allowed to like spoil the ending of it?
Yes, we're going to. Oh, of the escape room? We have to. It's the best part.
Oh, but I don't know if we're allowed to. Did we sign anything? We definitely signed waivers, but...
Well, we didn't say which place it was.
Yeah. Okay, well, we'll say it. It culminates in, you end up in this other... so the main bathroom, there's another door. There's always, like, a secret room.
Right. But so we got into the first room. There was, like, 2 toilets. It did look just like that one room. And, you had to unlock this and do that and get through here. And at one point, we found a gun. And I knew it. This was one of the things like, what if there's a gun?
Yeah.
And the, Jiggy comes up over the speakers and is like, okay, now you're going to have to decide the person who's most scared. You're going to take, put them out of their misery. You're going to, have them kneel to the ground and shoot them.
Yeah. So.
And everyone knew it was me.
Because
the game masters knew it was me. So I was like, oh my God. So I got down and like my friend Deanna, she had the gun and you even said, you're just like, I am not okay with this.
It was very traumatic to watch because, just you were sitting there on the ground and there was a gun aimed at your head and it's like, I know she's going to be fine, but like, I don't like seeing this.
Jarring. And I thought it would make a more menacing noise and it didn't, which was really sad. I kind of wanted it to.
It was kind of just a air pop gun. It wasn't even like blanks. It wasn't a real gun, obviously. Yeah. It was like a toy, just pop. But I really was hoping that at least an electronic sound effect of like a explosion or like a or something. But
it would have been cool.
Would have been scarier.
Yeah, but that just triggers like another thing for you to open. And then we do finally get to that last room that we made it through the shit room is what it's referred to as.
Guess, yeah.
And then we get to the almost ending. Like you can kind of tell, okay, there's like one more door. This has to be it, right?
There's a door. It's completely chained off. There's a lock on it, and it's got a key, the hole, and you're like, okay, we got to find the key. But all around the ground are also more padlocks, just like that one, that are all broken. And I thought it was just supposed to be aesthetic, and I was like, okay, fine. And in that room, eventually, through more things, we found bolt cutters. And then, as we were trying to figure
Literally,
out...
as you were the one who undid the lock and found these bolt cutters.
Right.
Like, the second you pick them up, the voice of Jiggy comes over and is like, now go cut that fucking lock before I come get you. And the other door that we just had come through was closed, and it pops open. This huge saw noise is like, and I just froze. I was just
Jody,
just screamed the entire time.
You were just like a frozen wreck. You were just like, and I still had the bolt cutters, which was really lucky because I went over and figured out we're supposed to actually cut. That's such a crazy thing to put in an escape room.
Yeah, that is not anything that's ever happened to me.
You don't damage anything in the room. Like, that's rule 1 is don't break anything.
Yeah, so you had to cut it and then open the door, and then we all ran out, and that was the end of it.
Out. That was it. You escaped.
But
really cool.
it was a good 10 seconds of me like,
it was
just so scared the entire time.
It was awesome.
It was a great ending.
Yeah, very good. I don't know if we want to say the name of the building, the business.
No.
Okay.
Because then they would know.
Right, I guess. Yeah.
We literally just talked about this.
The room itself we're not going to say, but okay. Well,
yeah.
That place, you know who you are if you're listening.
Awesome
Very
place,
good room.
really fun. Really fun to kind of get into this topic.
Yeah, and we knew we were doing this, you said. You knew we were doing this episode, so we had to specifically do this room.
Right. Okay, so we've talked about our experiences with Saw, that we like these movies.
Yep,
and
love them.
Put ourselves in this headspace.
Yeah.
Like, do you really think you could do those challenges?
In the movie, like the actual Saw traps, I never know because I've talked
it's always this like human desire to live, this instinct of, the human spirit overcoming and living.
I have talked before about how desensitized I am to horror. Things just don't scare me. I watch all these Saw movies, and there's only a couple of times where I'm like, oh, that's gross. The rest of it, I'm just like, yeah, I want to see what happens next, or, oh, interesting, that's very creative, or I like the effects there, they did a good job. But I'm never like, oh, what if I was in... I'm never scared of these movies, just like I'm not scared of any horror movie.
You never put yourself in those situations?
That's different. That's not what I'm saying.
Oh, okay.
I'm saying I never get scared, and so it's easy for me to be like, I could do it, because there's nothing real there. If I actually imagine, like, for example, the beginning of Saw 2, not the reverse bear trap, but the...
Venus flytrap.
The Venus flytrap, where the guy has to... take his own eye out. Eye stuff really bothers me.
Me too.
It just is disgusting, and I can't stand
We'll get into other things that bother me in this
I'm sure we will.
Episode.
So it's one of the things that you could do, but would I do it? I just don't know.
You've never really been put in a situation where you've had to like just kind of go on your instincts and just do it, right?
I mean, kind of. I've been in like car crashes where it's like, okay, now I have to figure out how I'm going to get out of this, and instinct kind of does take over in those cases. What are you referring to? Oh,
I was just going to talk about my car crash that I had.
Yeah.
And that, I ended up upside down.
Right.
In the car.
It flipped into a ditch, and the car flipped upside down.
Right. So I was hanging upside down, and that's when like literally... I was super zen of just like, I've got to call somebody, otherwise no one will know that I'm here.
Yeah, you didn't panic.
No, I didn't. Mm-hmm. Panicked, nights later.
Yeah. You were like post event, but yeah.
But it just was like so easy, and I wasn't hurt. Mm-hmm. But my biggest fear when I first like looked around, I was in a ditch, and so like there was dirt and land on either side of the windows, and I just looked around and I was like, if I'm stuck in this car and they have to call the fire department or something, I'm not gonna I'm gonna freak out and like break something. Luckily my back window was broken, so I could just crawl right out of it. But that's something that I would have been like, I'm getting out, I'm finding something, I'm breaking that window, I gotta get out of here, because I couldn't stand being in that car another second.
The will to live is very strong with you.
So I have those very bare bone things of like, I could do it.
Yeah. Well, that's horrific, but
I'm
good.
also of the mind, if the zombie apocalypse comes out, I'm going to just shoot myself because I don't even want to deal with it.
You and I have I think every couple has talked about, so the zombies come. What do we do? What's our first move? And Jody, yours is...
I was like, let's take ourselves out.
I'm
not doing it.
Okay.
There's no way.
I don't feel the same way, which is going to be a problem, but...
I'll shoot you first.
You'll shoot me first. Okay, well.
Because we are not dealing with that.
Why don't we cross that bridge when we come to it?
I hope we don't.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure we're not.
You never know.
Yeah, I don't want to jinx it. I don't want to jinx it. So now do we want to get into the
movies?
The movies that are Saw.
Yeah. Let's
Cool.
get into these
do it.
bad traps.
You want to... I don't know how you want to handle this.
Sure. First of all, we'll just kind of broadly talk about what Saw is about. Saw is about this guy named John Kramer.
Although, if you're following the events of the movie, we don't... This is a twist. So we're spoiling all the movies. So don't come into this clean.
Don't at me.
Right, don't at me.
John Kramer is this gentleman who gets diagnosed with brain cancer and... his wife,
Jill Tuck.
Yeah, they're now estranged. She had an unfortunate miscarriage, and now he's like, oh, instead of going through all of this, I can't get insurance to cover me and that type of thing. He's like, I'm just gonna end it. Mm-hmm. Drives his car off a cliff, survives.
Yeah,
and now has this like will to live.
Right.
So now he's putting other people who have made bad choices in their lives and testing them to get them to have this great will to live.
Yes.
That's basically what it's about.
That's the philosophy behind
it.
A lot of the horrors that you see is this person going to put themselves through unimaginable terror in order to survive? What is the cost of life?
Right. So we get our first movie. This came out in 2004. Saw.
That's right.
This is like a very low budget film.
Very low budget.
When I first watched it, I don't necessarily think I could tell. Now that I've watched them again, I'm like, oh yes, this one is very low budget.
I think I read a blurb from the producers, the writers, who said that they knew that they couldn't have all these crazy locations and go to all these places. So they're like, what if we have the characters contained in an area? What if they're literally chained up so they can't leave? And then they started to ask, well, why are they chained up? What's the next step from there? And that's how they kind of developed the story. That would be really interesting. It was literally, we don't have money for locations.
This, yeah.
Yeah. Which is why limitations always end up
pushing you.
Pushing you to do better stuff.
Cool. So we end up in this shit room.
Yeah. It's a disgusting bathroom. Yeah. It's filthy. It's grimy.
We get two men just wake up. One is Wesley from Princess Bride.
And it's not an actor. It's actually Wesley. And he's like, well, princess.
It's Gordon whatever. He's a doctor. Right. I don't even know his last name.
Carrie Elwes is the actor. Yes. I don't know how to pronounce that. Elwes is... But
Do you know the name of the other actor?
Dr. Lawrence Gordon. Oh, and I believe it's Lee Whannell is the actor. He's also like one of the writers, creators. Yeah. And the character is Adam.
Right.
He has a last name, but it doesn't matter.
Yeah. So we have these two guys. They wake up. They don't know how they got there. And they're both chained.
Yeah.
They, eventually, kind of search around to see if there's a key. There's not. They find a bag. There's a recorder in it. Or what'd you call it? A recorder?
Tape player.
Tape
Walkman.
player, yeah.
A Sony Walkman.
And it's gotten show like, okay, we're going to play a game. You two have been not very nice people in your lives.
Can I request that somebody edit the Saw movies so that when Billy the Puppet shows up, it's Jody's voice just now being like, I want to play a game. You guys have been not very nice or whatever.
And it just
so good.
It's like you're gonna have to just, Wesley, your objective is to kill Adam by 6 o'clock. Otherwise, I'm gonna kill your wife and daughter.
Who I have, and here's a picture of them tied up.
Right. And so, okay, and here's a gun with one shot. Here's 2 cigarettes. Here's a saw. Of course, they try the saws on the chains. It doesn't work, and they, eventually Wesley. That's what I'm gonna refer to him as because
okay.
He's like, okay, he's not intending for us to cut through the chain. He's intending for us to cut through our feet, which, again, is just one of those, movie moments where you're like, dun, dun, dun.
It's very iconic, just this moment of, we're not supposed to cut through the chains, we're supposed to cut through our feet. This is such a moment.
My God.
Yeah, no, and it's just become iconic. This movie's so good. I love this first movie
We get the iconic Billy, jigsaw. Mm-hmm. The logo for this movie. We're starting to get the backstory that this is not the first test people that this, serial killer, quote unquote, has had. And he always marks his victim with a little jigsaw cut out.
Which we later learn is because it's symbolic because they're missing a fundamental piece of the human equation, which is the will to live.
Yep. So we have, those And then we have our police squad that are trying to find out who this killer is, which
Yes.
Danny Glover is one of them.
Danny Glover is one of them. The other one is Miles from Lost.
Yep. And another guy from Lost.
There's 2 Lost actors in this movie. Michael Emerson, he plays Zepp, who is
a nurse from the hospital that Wesley works at.
Right, and it seems to be that he's the one putting all this stuff together. We see him behind the curtains. He's got the family of Dr. Gordon tied up, and he's, running the show. He's the bad guy.
Right. And so what we didn't mention is that, we have these 2 guys in this shit bathroom, and there's also a dead guy.
There's a dead body that's laying there, and Zepp's voice tells them that he succumbed to the poison that's in the room. This is a really weird plot detail.
This is very weird.
And I don't know that it's true, because obviously we'll talk about what happens later, but at no point do they ever succumb to the poison themselves or anything. I think the poison stuff is a lie.
Probably.
But that's what the body's doing there. And he's got a gun, which is how they get the gun.
What's Adam's objective in this movie?
I think just to escape, right? I mean, he's just there as
But, Gordon has to kill him.
Right.
That's his by 6 o'clock.
Yeah.
Adam doesn't get a choice like that.
I don't think so. Just,
not get shot?
Right.
Does he get to leave at 6 o'clock if he doesn't get shot?
It's a little messy because you have to imagine if either of them were able to, at the beginning of the game, saw through their own foot and escape, is the door unlocked? Could they just walk out? Could he go get help and save him? Because it seems like there's 2...
Ostensibly, because... So we get around to where it's almost 6 o'clock, and there is a cell phone. It can only receive calls.
Right.
It gets a call in to Wesley. It's his wife and daughter. They're about to be killed.
They're about to be shot by Zepp.
Right.
And he's like, you didn't... Because 6 o'clock hits, and he's like, you haven't killed Adam.
But Danny Glover's kind of caught up with him, and so now he's in there. He's, shooting at Zepp. And so all Wesley can hear is that there's shots going on, so he thinks his family's dead. So he's like, I gotta get out of here.
Right.
And so he's like, I'm doing it. I'm sawing my own foot off.
Yeah, he's deranged at this point. He's driven to the edge.
So he just starts, wailing on his foot, chops it off, and starts, limping away. He does shoot Adam.
Yeah, because this is a really stupid point of the movie for me.
He it hits 6 o'clock. He hears the shotguns on the phone, then saws his leg off, and then shoots at him, and it's gonna matter
it's
at that
too
point.
late.
Game over.
You've been driven to the point where you saw your own foot off because you think your family's in such immediate danger.
Right. You can't reverse that.
Yeah, and Zepp, or whoever is behind this, is obviously busy right now, so he's not going to see you.
Yeah.
It's confusing. Another note that I want to say is it must be that the house that his family lives in is just next door to this thing. Because
he runs down to the shit room and,
he
comes
shows
in.
up right as Carrie-Elle is there. No, he leaves first.
No, he goes to leave. Zepp comes in. Adam beats the shit out of him with a toilet seat lid.
Ends up killing Zepp.
And all, they're crawling away, and all of a sudden, the dead guy that's on the floor.
Well, no, you're not exactly how this goes, but.
Well, go ahead. Take over for me.
All right,
then.
well,
Jesus.
what happens is Gordon, so they kill Zepp, so it's just the 2 of them and these now 2 dead bodies, and Gordon says, I'm going to go get help. Oh, Adam lives. He shoots Adam. Adam's fine, though. He missed.
No, he gets shot.
He does get shot, but he missed his heart or whatever. Right. He's not immediately dead. So he says, Adam, sorry I shot you. You know how it is. I'm going to go get help. So he leaves. He's out of the room. And while he's gone, Adam searches the body of Zepp and finds another tape recorder. And he plays it, and it turns out Zepp is not the mastermind behind the whole thing.
Yeah.
He was just another pawn. And it's super iconic music that da-na-na, da-na-na, da-na-na-na, starts playing. And the tape reveals that, you've been poisoned too. Dude loves poison. And I'll give you the antidote as long as you do this game, you set this thing up and you kidnap these people. Well, I guess that part's done, but just run this game for me. And while he's listening to that, as it's wrapping up, that's when the dead body stands up in the middle of the room and pulls off the makeup of the deadness effect or whatever that he had. And it is John Kramer, the guy from Lawrence Gordon's hospital, that we saw before, and he's the mastermind behind everything. And he utters, this whole ending is just so good. Where
I do remember seeing this first time, just screaming, what?
Yeah, just you're just your mind is blown. You don't understand what's happening. Adam is screaming and reaching. I love the shot of him reaching out towards and yelling.
Yeah,
and John Kramer is like, game over, and slams the door shut.
Only Adam is left in there.
Yeah, only because Gordon's gone. He's left by now, and Zepp is dead. And he's just left there, and that's how the movie ends. It's such an incredible movie. If anyone's listening who hasn't seen these movies and you're nervous about like just the gore and everything,
the first one's not bad.
The first one's not bad. It is intense. There's definitely scenes where you're like, what's going to happen? And especially when he's sawing his own foot off. You never see it. It's very, I don't want to say tastefully done, but it's very like minimalist. You don't see hardly any blood.
Or you don't even see the stump as he crawls away.
Right. It's very just underplayed. It's very low budget. And so don't worry about that. This first movie is legitimately great. The rest of them, we'll talk about the merits of them, but the first one is just such a good movie. I strongly recommend it.
We're going to jump back to more towards the beginning of this movie. We also get a flashback of the second game that John Kramer has done.
Right.
That we know of. It's the reverse bear trap, which is also just an icon of this movie.
That's right.
It's almost a character in itself.
Yep.
They use it so many times. But this is the first one. It's put on this girl named Amanda.
Yep.
She was a huge drug addict, and now John's testing her like, okay, are you like, you've been poisoning yourself, and since you don't want to kill yourself, I'll do it for you unless you want to live.
Right. Essentially. Yeah.
She has this reverse bear trap, which is basically hooked into her top jaw and her bottom jaw. And once the timer has run out, we'll split them apart and literally like blow her face to pieces.
Yeah, we see this demonstrated on a styrofoam head.
Yeah, which is...
Of course, the styrofoam is going to shatter into a billion pieces. It's styrofoam.
And make it more menacing than it actually is.
But it's still pretty cool.
And what she has to do is there's another person there who is just waking up from anesthesia. He has the key inside his body. She has to get it out.
Yeah. It's a weird fake out where Jigsaw tells her that it's a dead body. And so she grabs the scalpel and is about to do it. And then the guy wakes up and she's like, oh no, now I have to do it to a real person. I don't understand why the fake out. Why not just say, there's your cellmate or whatever. There's your whatever. But I don't know.
Yeah, if it was a dead body, like...
it'd still be a little hard to do. I don't think...
Not as much.
I don't think a real person could, tear into a dead body.
When you're in that, it'd be
Sure.
way easier.
I don't think we'll know, but anyway.
Anyway, she gets the trap off. She, gets the key out of the guy. She undoes it, and it falls off her face.
Success.
3 seconds before it explodes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so she was a survivor of a jigsaw trap.
She did. Good job.
She plays, of course, a huge part in these movies from here on out.
Yeah.
So that's basically the first one. We're not going to spend this long on each one.
Yeah, we're just going to briefly touch.
Run down the traps.
The first movie, I want to stress, again, is a good movie.
Great movie.
It's got, because of the low budget and because of how inexperienced a lot of people are, it's got some messiness to it. It's sloppy, but it's such a compelling mystery and what's going on and who's doing this and everything. Even if you know, it's still just a really well-constructed movie. So.
Right.
They become pretty bad towards the end.
Right.
We'll talk about them.
Okay, so a year later we get Saw 2.
Yeah, and it would go on to become every Halloween.
Every single year.
Once a year until it ended. If it's Halloween, it must be Saw.
Right. So 2005, Saw 2. So this one, we get Donnie Wahlberg.
Donnie Wahlberg from The Sixth Sense,
right.
Most famously.
Yeah. He's now a cop that's working on the Jigsaw case.
Yeah.
And is trying to get through all of it. Gets closer to Jigsaw, finds him, and then, John Kramer's like, now it's time for your test.
Yeah.
All you have to do is sit here with me until 6 o'clock.
Because
I have your son, if you turn around and look at that monitor, and he's in a house with a bunch of fucking assholes.
People,
yeah. And he's playing his game and you're going to play your game. And as long as you sit here and just calmly talk to me and let me tell. He's got a temper. Yeah. Tell your story. Cause he's a Wahlberg. You'll win your game.
Yeah.
Well, he doesn't say it that plainly, but that's all he really had to do.
Yeah, this movie does one of my favorite things that any movie can do, which is catch the bad guy in the beginning of the movie, and he's
that is really cool.
He's not under arrest, but you know what I mean. He's being held since the beginning of the movie. That's so much fun because you're like, what's gonna happen?
Yeah.
What can
Saw
happen?
2 is my favorite Saw movie. I think it's just super tight and has a great story to it.
It's a lot more well constructed than the first one. Higher budget.
So we have John Kramer, Donnie Wahlberg there, and the police force.
Yeah, there's Detective Carey, there's Detective Rigg, there's a bunch of people, but they don't matter yet.
They're all there. They're now watching on the monitors the people in, I call it Hell House.
Sure.
Because it's a house of hell. So all of these players wake up of different gender and age, and we have Xavier, who's just this big meathead, and then Donnie's son, and then other people.
Yeah, who I want to say is named Eric, but is not.
No, it's Eric Matthews as Donnie Wahlberg's character.
I don't remember his name.
I don't know his name.
Bobby
either.
Or something?
Nah.
Dang it, Bobby.
No, stop. You've never even watched that show.
Haven't I? I think I have.
Okay, anyway. But these people are starting to wake up. Last person to wake up is Amanda. From the first one, from
there.
Reverse Bear Trap. She's
wearing a very different hairstyle from the first movie.
It's a bad wig, first of all.
I don't mind her second movie
I don't
haircut.
like it.
I don't like her third movie hair.
It's just long hair.
Yeah, but it's weird. It's like way too
really straight.
Yeah.
Well, that was the early 2000s.
It was
really straight hair. So she's there and she's like, crap, how did I get in this again? How did I get in this situation again?
Yeah.
She's like, well, it's because I've been cutting myself and that he must be testing me again or whatever.
Right.
They, eventually they all find out that all of these people have done time in prison.
Because of...
Well, they eventually find out, except for the kid, Donnie Wahlberg's son. And then they eventually find out that they're all there because his dad planted evidence on all of them to get them convicted. So now they're really wanting to kill this.
Because he's kind of like not a clean cop, this Donnie Wahlberg.
No. They're getting poisoned.
Mm-hmm. There's nerve gas
in the house. And they have until 3:00 to get out. And there are various antidotes around the house. Good luck finding them.
Yeah.
And that type of stuff. If you survive, the house will open and you get to walk out.
I don't think they get a single antidote.
No, they don't. It's really fucking frustrating.
Yeah.
So let's talk about some of the traps. First kill that we get is they find a key. It obviously says does not work on door.
This is stupid. Uh-huh.
And
do not use on the door lock. Yeah.
Right. Of course, Xavier's like, fuck that. I've never played an escape room before.
Right.
I don't know those rules. And walks up and goes and is unlocking it. Another white guy is like looking through the peephole and gets shot in the head.
Yeah. Super unlikely.
Lucky dude.
Yeah.
Let me tell you.
Right. We'll talk about
my theory of being lucky. Like, just get the hell out of that situation.
Yeah. It's one of the most quick and painless deaths that anyone.
We get that one. We get, then they go into the basement. Abby, who got all of those people there, that is disclosed that he's the one that got all of the people in the house.
Oh, yeah, he's an arsonist for one thing.
Well, yeah, that too. That's what he did time for, I think.
Okay. I thought it had something to do with whatever.
There's all these recordings that they find and they play through the tape, and it's like, okay, Abby, this is your test. You got to go inside this furnace. There's two antidote syringes. Take one for yourself, and it's up to you to give whoever else you want, but be careful because the devil's always watching you.
Right.
So he crawls in there. He takes the one antidote down. He stupidly, doesn't throw it out to somebody.
Yeah.
Which is
dumb.
what I guess really I would have done because, you guys can fight over it. I'm not picking.
But a consistent theme throughout this series is that, these characters are bad people, and they don't really think that much.
And he goes to pull the other one, and it closes the oven door.
Yeah.
And then it turns on. So now he's locked in there. And if he looks over to his right, I hate this. He looks over to his right and there's the devil pointing at the gas like, hey, you should have turned this off.
Right.
Just to be safe.
Or I guess he could have done it at that point. He just doesn't.
Yeah. Why doesn't he? I don't know if that really would have worked.
I don't know.
Anyway, he burns alive. And, neither of them, nobody else gets the other antidote.
No, he's dead.
Yeah.
He, crawls out halfway, which is stupid.
Well, because they had to.
Lucky for later, yeah.
Yeah. So then I think, there is, one more trap type thing.
Uh-huh.
It's this Latino girl,
Addison.
Addison, she starts, succumbing more to the nerve gas and whatever, and she walks upstairs and finds this clear box with an antidote syringe in it.
Uh-huh.
And there's 2 holes that she can fit her hands up in through.
That are clearly, the holes are lined with these razor blades that they're circled
and
so that...
Imagine, if you will, if you remember, you go to McDonald's, you put your lid on your cup and then you put your finger where the straw goes and you try to pull it back out. How much that fucking hurts.
Right.
That's
imagine razors and your wrist.
Yeah.
And This whole scene is so stupid. First of all, she barges in like Kramer. She just kicks the door in and is like, "Hey, what's up?" And she sees that there's like a tape recording there and it has her name on it, and she just grabs it and throws it. And she's like, "I don't care about that." Yeah, she doesn't even. Yeah, and then she just like immediately shoves her hand up there, and so here's what happens: she reaches in, grabs the antidote, but accidentally knocks it over, so it spills and is over the glass thing, and now she has two options. One is to stick her fingers in the razors and open them so she can pull her hand down, because clearly she doesn't need to get in there anymore because the antidote is spilled. Or the other option is to stick her other hand through the other razor thing, thus like trapping herself in there
and bleeding
to death. Guess which one she goes with?
If she had somebody there next to her,
maybe she
could have gotten out, even if she stuck her other hand in there.
But why stick her other hand up there?
Because she's a dumbass.
She's so stupid. Yeah. It's dumb. Yeah, it's really dumb.
And that, I think, is one of my kills. Maybe not. I'll get to my list later. I do hate that one.
Yeah, it's pretty horrific.
Yeah, and because she's literally just like, her body weight is just left there to die.
But it doesn't bother me so much because of how unavoidable and stupid it is.
Right.
Like, that's such a easy way to get out of that.
That's basically all of the traps. Of course, at the beginning of the movie, we get the reverse fly trap that the guy has.
Oh, yeah.
You know, behind his eye is the key. He has to cut his eye out in order to do it. He doesn't do it. It clamps in front of his face and behind his face, has spikes on it, closes him in, he dies instantly.
Right.
That's another classic one. Basically, every one of these movies has an opener.
Yeah, there's an opener trap, yeah.
That usually doesn't have anything to do with.
The first one doesn't, because it's such a different movie.
Right, but the rest of them do.
Yeah.
So that's basically it. Donnie Wahlberg, the time's running out. They can see that Xavier, the big muscled head, is trying to kill his kid, and so he's like, starts to beat John Kramer up. He's like, tell me where they are.
He does not have a calm and collected conversation.
He breaks his rules of his game that was supposed to be sit down and talk to me until 6 o'clock.
Right. So, instead, John says, I'll take you to
He's like, okay, game over. I'll take you there to where you want to be.
Mm-hmm. And
so they leave, he gets him in the car. They leave. They go to the house. He's running through trying to find his son, gets all the way down. Amanda at that time had taken the boys all the way downstairs. Under this house is the shit basement from the first movie.
Yeah, it's part of the same house.
And traps Donnie Wahlberg in there.
Oh, well.
Traps him in there. Meanwhile, back at where all the police were, and where they were interrogating John Kramer, 6 o'clock opens. The safe that nobody's been looking at unwinds, opens. His son's in there.
Yeah.
They find out that this has all been pre-recorded.
Yeah.
And so they haven't been watching these feeds in real time. They've been recorded. So now Donnie Wahlberg's at this house.
He's trapped there.
Right.
That's why the house was empty when they showed up. And he's like, where's my son? And Amanda was there because that happened 2 days ago. So Amanda's already been like, he was here 2 days ago. You were too late.
Right. So she is now one of John Jigsaw's apprentices, and she's like, I will carry on his work because he's about to fucking die anyway.
Cancer. After the events of the first one where she was put in the reverse bear trap, it seems that she was rehabilitated and became his apprentice. Right.
She puts him in a foot shackle and is like, game over, boom, end of the first movie.
Second movie.
Right. Right. Trust me, I'll get more confused as we go on.
Oh yeah, for sure. Okay.
Movie 3.
Yeah.
We will, it starts, I can't even remember the first trap that's in this
third movie is Saw 3.
Oh, it's the Unbeatable Game.
Troy?
It has, we get this character who has all these rings punched through his skin.
Yeah, Troy.
Yeah. And through his ankles and his elbows, and one's actually through his jaw.
Yeah.
And, the objective is to pull all of these things out in a certain amount of time and you get to live.
Mm-hmm.
There's no way he ends up pulling the ones off his arms, his legs, and even his Achilles tendons, which you wouldn't be able to fucking walk after that.
Right.
But he can't get, there's no way to get this one out of your jaw by your brute force. I wouldn't think.
I don't think so.
So what he doesn't know is that, the room's sealed anyway.
The door was sealed shut, yeah.
So even if he got out of all those things, he wouldn't have got out, and the bomb that was going to go off would have went off and killed him anyway. Right. It's an unbeatable game, and the cops kind of notice that.
Yeah.
So that's what we get. That's what kicks off Saw 3.
Right. This movie, this movie becomes a little bit unclear because there's all the like cop stuff that happens, and I don't remember a lot of that. But basically, there's two other stories going on, which is you have Jeff, one of the most annoying characters in the Saw franchise, going through this game of forgiveness because he had an experience where a drunk driver, I think, killed his son many years ago, and he has to go through and all of the people that were involved in the event and the case afterwards that ended up getting the drunk driver let go. He has to forgive them all or try to save them. And he's never really put in any situations, like later on we see other situations where people have to save other people by putting themselves in pain.
Right.
And Jeff doesn't ever really have to do that.
He does.
There's some uncomfortable stuff, like when he puts his face against the pipe, but that's basically it.
We have his story going on at the same time, and we also have Lynn, who is a doctor who's been abducted and is now brought into this...
It's like a surgery
workspace makeshift hospital to keep John Kramer alive. Amanda abducts her, puts this bomb necklace around her, and is like, this is connected to his heartbeat, and if his heart stops beating, you're gonna die.
Yeah.
Because she's literally just trying to keep him alive at this point.
Right.
And so that's what she's... So, Lynn is constantly telling Amanda, I need to get him to a hospital. I can't do this stuff here. And Amanda's like, no, we're not leaving. We're not going. You're going to fucking I can get you whatever you need. You're going to do the surgery here to keep him alive.
Yeah.
And they do. And that's like crazy. Like saw part of his skull off because his brain is swelling so much.
In a series that's like notable for its like gore and torture and everything.
Right.
This weird medical scene, which somehow is like much worse in some ways. Mm-hmm. It's interesting.
Let's talk about the traps here that Jeff goes through. The first one is this woman who's strung up in this very cold freezer type area and is gently getting sprayed with like tons of water, but is instantly freezing when it touches her. Yeah,
it's a little weird because he like turns around and she's an icicle at the end because he fails to save her.
Right.
And it seems like that would take a long time for that to happen.
Right. That one I'm never like, I'm like, man, if I really had to, maybe that one wouldn't be too bad.
Okay.
But it probably would. I've never.
Freezing to death is supposed to be one of the best ways to go.
Ostensibly. So he doesn't make that one, doesn't save her. Second one, there's the judge from his trial is there. Yeah. He's at the bottom of a pit.
Oh, I hate this one.
Handcuffed or like tied down to the bottom of the pit. And in comes this assembly line of dead pigs.
Yeah.
Who go through a meat grinder that's above the pit,
like mushed up,
and falls onto the judge. Ugh. It is slowly filling up to where eventually he would drown in all these pig guts. Blech.
Yeah, it's horrific, and he has to like burn the effects of his daughter, which honestly.
Son.
Whatever. So
whatever. It's a son.
all of the like horrific mutilation and torture, and this guy just is like, let go of your dead son's belongings. Okay, I choose that one. Like of all the things that I would have to go, of all the people to be in the series, Jeff is one of the obvious choices. Yeah. Like because he has it so easy.
Yeah. So he does actually get he burns all of his son's belongings. He gets the key and he stops the machine.
He does save the judge.
He saves the judge.
Yeah.
He goes to his last test, which is the actual person who hit his son with the car. And he's in this contraption's crazy.
Oh, the rack, I think it's called.
Yeah, it's called the rack. I basically like twisted body is what I call it.
Oh, yeah.
All of his arms and head and legs are in different devices. And the timer will start, and it slowly is turning each one by one to where it would snap, break your bones, and just like tear your limbs off, and eventually is going to tear your head off.
Right.
Jeff has to reach into a glass box that has a gun pointed at him, and there's a key he has to
tied
get
to the trigger.
And it's like, will you take a bullet for the person that killed your son?
Yeah.
And Jeff's like, no, I'm not going to do that. He unties the key.
He's actually pretty smart.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is very good, like, escape room knowledge.
Right. I'll just
unties the key, but is very sloppy at it and is kind of leaning over, pulls the key out, and he's like, I got it. Boom. The gun goes off, misses Jeff, hits the judge.
Who just happened to be standing there.
Where
That's
it is.
stupid.
Yeah.
Like, I don't like that at all.
And so Judge dies, and Jeff is too late to...
Right. He can't figure out where the key goes.
Which a fucking idiot.
Yeah. Well, maybe
but
it's
he does
not clear.
say, like, at the end of it, right before the guy dies, he's like, I do forgive you. And then, boom, it just rips his head off.
A lot of good that does.
Yeah.
Dude's dead. Then he shows up at the last thing is he shows up at the place where the medical stuff is happening. He, like, walks through the door as that's wrapping up, which
Right.
what's going on there is... So I guess, I don't know what the best way of talking about this is. Apparently, Amanda was also being tested during this.
Right.
Her test was to not kill
Lynn.
Lynn, which she desperately wants to do. She's, I guess, jealous of the attention
Yeah, it's just
that he's
something...
getting. We, spoilers, later learn that she's being blackmailed and says, like, you have to kill Lynn or else I will tell John Kramer about something from your past, which is, we don't care about spoilers at this point,
Right.
do we?
No.
She was involved with the death of her unborn son through very tangential means. She was around when somebody accidentally killed
John Kramer's unborn son.
Right. Jill Tuck was pregnant and she ended up losing the baby. We talked about the miscarriage. So she's being blackmailed that information will be revealed unless she kills Lynn, which would
does,
also fit.
Or she shoots her.
She shoots her. She ends up surviving until...
And Jeff comes in. That's his wife, which we find out, like, oh, these two are husband and wife.
We don't know that until
And
later.
so now Jeff finds that he's like, oh my God, you have my wife who's like hooked up to your bomb machine. And he has a gun. He finds one somewhere. So Amanda shoots.
Oh, he's given a gun before he walks in.
Shoots Lynn in the back. And then Jeff shoots Amanda in the neck.
Right.
Because why wouldn't you?
She ends up dying.
Right. Yeah. She ends up dying, which is crazy.
Right. And then
John Kramer's like, you made it through your test. He does say, I'm going to put you through one more test.
Yeah, that's at the end. But first, before
he's
he
like,
says that,
will you forgive me?
Yeah. He says
putting you through this.
He says
stuff.
this is the final part of his game that he has to go through, which is to forgive Jigsaw for putting him through
And
this
his
and
wife.
killing his wife, essentially.
And he says, yeah, I forgive you. And then picks up a saw blade and cuts John Kramer across the neck.
Kills him, not knowing that...
Not knowing that Jill's bomb necklace is hooked up to his heart rate. So the bomb goes off, kills her.
Yeah.
And so he's just like,
What?
they're standing with three bodies. Amanda's dead, John Kramer's dead, and his wife's dead now.
Right. And then Strom shows up. Who's Strom? You'll have to tune into Saw 4 to find out. He actually doesn't show up in this movie, but at the end of that one.
So
John Kramer dies.
Yeah, I completely start to just get everything mixed up. So, okay.
I'll take
Next
over from
year's
here.
Saw 4 comes out, 2007.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead.
Well, I don't remember. So Saw 4 is the one... So I just want to talk about the spoiler for this movie.
Okay.
It takes place at the same time...
Parallel
to Saw 3. We don't know that at first.
We find that out at the end.
The opening sequence is these two people, one of whom is blinded, the other person is mouth is sewn shut, and they have to work together, although they can't really communicate that easily, to survive. Ends up the guy who is blinded ends up trying to attack because he doesn't know the guy who's muted. But the guy who's muted ends up getting the advantage and killing him and surviving, and he tears his mouth open. This guy's name is Art Blank, and he ends up becoming after this, ends up setting up the next game throughout this whole movie, and he's like you think he's the next Jigsaw.
Because we open this movie with Jigsaw's autopsy to confirm that he is dead.
Yeah. That is the first thing that happens is we see the autopsy. We also meet Detective Hoffman.
Luke.
Who's Luke? No. Hoffman is the bad guy.
That's right.
Strom is the detective.
Hoffman is the Muppet.
Yeah, Hoffman kind of has a weird Muppety face. I really like this guy. I like his look.
I like Luke.
He looks evil. Like he looks good.
Yeah.
But Strom is a detective. He's a good guy, and he's played by Luke from Gilmore Girls.
Scott Patterson, I
Scott
believe
Patterson, that's
is
right.
his name.
And he is trying to find everything. Also,
they're trying to find Donnie Wahlberg from way back when.
From movie 2. Specifically, Detective Rigg, who we've seen, I think he was introduced in the second one.
Yep.
He's also... This is stupid. So Jigsaw tells him that his whole thing is that he tries too hard to save people and that he has to not do that. So,
that's dumb.
Yeah. So he's like, don't try to save everyone and
just set up the games and let them save themselves.
There's a couple times where he like puts people in these situations.
Yeah.
He has to like tie up this.
Yeah. He just like walks it. This is set up in his apartment. I think is just
right. That the hair thing. I'm talking about something else.
Right. That's what I'm talking about.
Okay.
And yeah, he walks through this door, which activates the time, which, this girl who's in this vice, her hair is wrapped up in it and is going to keep getting wrapped up in it until it scalps her.
Right.
And, he's supposed to not help her, but he does.
I guess she's supposed to get out herself somehow.
Yeah, which I don't even know how.
I don't know if it's explained, but I'm sure
No.
it's like a tear your own eye out or something horrific. Like, if you do this, you'll get out.
Right, but it also said on her tape that if she gets free, she has to kill the guy that's in the room.
Right. And so
So he, of course, he breaks his rule because he doesn't really know that that's his rule yet, is to not help anybody.
I think he does. He just is just trying to save people.
Right, so he gets this girl out of the thing. She grabs a knife and goes to kill him, and he eventually just kills her by throwing her against a mirror.
Yeah, which transitions into another scene. These movies start to have the weirdest scene transitions. They always have, but there's one movie, I think it's this one in particular, I can't remember, but just every scene transition is like a wacky dissolve or something.
So Rig has to go on his way because, the tapes told him to do that. He goes to this hotel and has to get the guy who owns the hotel. He has to get him in the room.
He's a rapist.
Put him in this trap
Yeah.
that he now has to go through.
Which is he has to press these buttons to poke his eyes out or his limbs will be torn off. He isn't able to do it. His limbs are torn off.
Right. Then he goes to a school where his kind of whole career began.
Yeah.
Where, he had this case of this girl that was being abused, but her father,
Silenced her.
And his wife.
Yeah, who was also being abused, but the movie or Jigsaw or somebody is because
it's your fault,
because you were complacent, you allowed it to happen, which is kind of weirdly victim blamey, but I understand what they're trying to go for.
I really like this trap.
Yeah?
I think this one's very empowering. So these two, the wife and the husband get strung up back to back.
Yeah.
And he, poles gets put through them.
Yeah.
Strategically, the poles are put through his kill zones, the jugular, his aorta, just places that if one of them is pulled out, he is going to die.
He'll bleed out.
But on her side, they're put to where she will not die, but she has to pull them out of both of their bodies.
Right, and he's fighting to hold them in.
And she does it.
She's able to do it. She survives.
She pulls she pulls them all out. He dies, and she's kind of left hanging there.
This actually happens before Riggs shows up. He shows up to see her being I did it.
She's
I'm alive.
I did it, and he's okay, you're just gonna have to wait here until.
Yeah, he just kind of shows up, sees this event, and is well, I'm out, and he pulls the fire alarm to get the police to show up and save her. But then he goes off, and he goes to the finale, I think, of this movie, which is where he sees a door that says, don't go through here, final test or something.
Yeah. And it said to don't go through there.
Yeah, he keeps pushing forward. He ends up opening the door, which sets off a series of events where by the way, this whole time we've seen Detective Hoffman and Donnie Wahlberg's character are both tied up on this thing where Donnie Wahlberg is kind of being hanged by this block of ice that's melting slowly. And also it's on a scale, so if the water from the ice balances off, if Donnie Wahlberg steps off of it or whatever, it will electrocute Hoffman, who's tied up. And so that's what we see the whole movie. We haven't talked about that, but that's happening. So when Riggs shows up, what happens is these two other blocks of ice swing down and crush Donnie Wahlberg's head.
Awesome.
It is a great.
I remember audibly going, because it was just I couldn't believe that it happened. I couldn't believe that they killed Donnie Wahlberg's character. It just seemed like he was going to be a bigger part of the series. You thought he would survive, yeah. And it just looks fucking crazy.
Because you have the obviously two things crushing his head, and that's cool, but also they shatter because they're ice.
Yeah.
So that happens, and then because Donnie Wahlberg has been lifted, the weights electrocute Hoffman, and at the same time, Hoffman had a gun for some reason. While he was being hung up, they gave Art Blank, the guy setting this up, gave him a gun, and he shot through the door because he, I guess, knew that if somebody comes through that door, it would kill him.
Donnie Wahlberg has the gun.
That's what I said. Or did I say Hoffman?
You said Hoffman.
Okay, well, I meant Donnie Wahlberg. He has a gun. So he shoots through the door as somebody's coming through. So he shoots Rig as he's entering, but he ends up dying anyway. And then Rig shoots Art Blank after Art Blank is going to pull out a recorder, and then he does that.
He's you failed your test. You were supposed to wait. Now everybody's going to die.
Yeah, so everybody dies, but as they're all dying, from the background, you see Hoffman stand up. He wasn't electrocuted. He is the new Jigsaw. It wasn't Art Blank. Art Blank, again, like Zepp, just another pawn. It's Hoffman who is behind it the whole time. So we see all that. So, Strom. And Strom shows up, and he's trying to chase after, I think, Hoffman too. Or, yeah, not Hoffman. He doesn't know about Hoffman yet. He's trying to find Wahlberg too. or whatever.
Right.
He ends up
all of these things are pointing to Rig being the new Jigsaw.
Right,
So they're trying to
follow
him.
Rig. Somehow Strom ends up in the medical place from the third movie, and he walks in right after the events of it happen.
So Jeff is standing there with the 3 bodies.
Yeah. Oh yeah, Jeff's gun's unloaded. That's something that we know from the third movie that we forget about in the fourth one. So when he aims a gun at Strom, it's not a loaded gun, but Strom just sees a gun being pointed at him.
So he shoots him.
He shoots him and kills that guy. So we never find out what the other game is that
for Jeff.
He talked about. But
for Slow Jeff.
Hoffman, apparently, so we learned that Hoffman was setting this all up to be the only survivor Strom was supposed to survive. He ends up finding Jeff from the third movie's other child who we knew existed, who was kidnapped. We didn't say that, but
Colette or something.
Colette, right.
Yeah.
And he saves her, and he's like, I'm the hero. I saved this child. Everybody else died. But hey, Art Blank was Jigsaw, and he's dead now, so day saved. Turns out he was just another killer. So the fifth movie, have we talked, what else do we want to say about the fourth one?
That's all we got.
Okay, the fifth one.
And this one is where we find out that Jill has a miscarriage by a crazy drug guy who, broke into her
methadone clinic.
Right, and hit her with a door so hard that she miscarried.
Right, which is a horrific scene. I hate watching this.
That's probably the hardest scene to watch in the whole series, honestly.
It's very disturbing.
Yeah. That's it.
So this movie is Hoffman as the head honcho. This
is Saw 5.
Saw 5.
2008.
2008. Okay. So what happens in this movie? The first one is the pendulum scene where this guy is. Right. So this one, again, we don't care about spoilers, so I'm just going to say, this one is revealed to have been set up by Hoffman before he was ever involved with Jigsaw.
Right. His sister was killed, and he wanted to kill his sister's killer.
Right.
So he's like, okay, I'm going to make it look like a Jigsaw kill, and I'll walk away clean. He
cuts out a piece of him just to like a Jigsaw thing. Oh, it's also, I think, sealed up. It's an unwinnable situation.
Right.
Oh, because,
yeah. So guy's laying on there almost in a Jesus pose, hands out.
Right.
And
there's a pendulum swinging down.
And it's going to get closer and closer to him. And the only way to stop that pendulum is to put his hands through both of the vices and crush them.
Which he's able to do.
Which he does.
But...
And then the pendulum doesn't stop, and it doesn't stop, and it doesn't, and eventually, starts cutting him, and he audibly utters, I did everything I was supposed to do, and it finally, goes so deep in and kills him.
This, if it wasn't unwinnable, this is another trap that I think I'd be able to do. Crushing
your hand.
I feel that's horrific, and you'd probably not be able to use your hands ever. But, as a part, I don't know. It just seems less horrific than any kind of amputation.
You have a good chance.
I think so, yeah. But I'm not a medical profession by any means. So he ends up cutting off a Jigsaw piece, but he uses a serrated blade, which comes in later.
Right, to kind of frame that, this is a copycat. This isn't the real Jigsaw.
I'm not sure when this is revealed, but we then see a Jigsaw finds out about this, apprehends, I think this is in the sixth one, so I'm jumping around, but John Kramer apprehends Hoffman and says, okay, well, I'm going to put you through this test where you have to shoot a shotgun that's aimed at your head, and he does, but it's empty. And since you now cherish life, now you...
Yeah, that's an easy...
Right, that's an easy one.
Easy game.
Since I'm going to make you an apprentice, since you obviously love doing this Saw stuff, so he becomes the new apprentice. That's how we learn that's happened.
And Luke Strom,
right,
is kind of now getting maybe it's Hoffman who's setting up all this shit. Yeah, so he's following him. He gets put in this trap.
This is a cool one,
which is also an unbeatable trap.
Yeah, there's no way of him surviving this.
His head gets in a box,
and a glass box. Luckily for the audience, the glass.
Yeah, and it fills up with water. He's supposed to drown. Strom, being the badass that he is. Oh, this is
such an awesome scene.
Takes apart a pen and shoves it into his neck.
Gives himself a tracheotomy, breathes through the pen.
And survives.
It's unclear what happens next.
Yeah, who finds him?
Yeah, he gets out somehow. It doesn't matter. He survives. I'm fine with it. I don't care.
I think it's so cool.
Oh, it's so... This is another thing I don't know if I'd be able to do.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe, but just...
But the fact that you would, that you could shove a pen, hard enough to get to your tracheotomy.
Yeah, I don't know if it would bend.
And not bust through both sides of your tracheotomy.
I'm fine with it. It's such a cool scene.
Yeah.
I don't care that it doesn't. It's like, okay.
Yeah, it's
so
awesome.
he survives and he ends up in the hospital and through the whole movie he's like, I'm talking like this now
because I've had a fucking pen through my throat.
Right. But now he's on to Hoffman because he's the only survivor, and I guess Hoffman's just being shady. I'm not sure why he's suspicious of Hoffman.
Again, this is when we're gonna have two storylines kind of going on at the same time. We're gonna have our cop, which is Strom and Hoffman story going on. Meanwhile, these 5 people are put through an obstacle course of death.
Oh, right. So, yeah, their whole thing is, and just for the sake of expediency, we'll just talk through the whole thing, is they're supposed to work together and solve each one as a team, but since
it's totally doable.
And it's totally doable. The first one is they have to reach these keys, and there's saw blades behind them, and if one person steps forward, the others are pulled back, so they can't all pull at the same time.
So they all have to take their time and go through it, and they almost do that until it gets to the last 2, and the time's running out, so they're both fighting each other, and the guy is more strong, so he gets his key, and unfortunately, one of the girls dies.
That's right.
She gets decapitated.
Right, and it turns out that each of the keys would have worked.
Right, so just one person got the key, they unlocked it, handed it to the next person, would have been okay.
I don't remember. The next one, is that the sequence where they go into the tunnels? And there's the nail bomb? I
believe so.
So they have to break open these tunnels to get key. They have to break open these jars
above their heads
to get keys to these tunnels.
And there's only 3 keys, and there's 4 of them.
Right, there's 4 of them. And if you're not in one of the tunnels by the time the timer runs out, there's this explosion that'll kill you. These nails will go off. One of them, the guy with the cool voice, the British one, he ends up not getting in, even though we find out later there's
enough room
for one tunnel could fit probably all 5 of them. Really,
no, at least 3 people.
At least 3 of them. So they really only needed 1 or 2 keys. But again, selfish. So they are we need to get all keys. Then there's the room where there's an electric shock that has to be delivered in this bathtub, and so they end up killing one of them, this girl, so there's only 2 left now. They put the girl's body in...
And they use her body as the conductor to get through the thing.
Right. It turns out that if they had all 5 lived to that point, they could have stood in it and held on and received mild shocks.
Right.
Then the final room, it's just down to 2 people, and they have to give blood. They have to
fill the bucket with blood to get out.
Right. And again, if they were all alive...
since there's only 2 of them,
they have to give a lot of blood.
So much blood.
Right.
Yeah, and if there was 5 of them, it would have just been a little bit.
There's this really gruesome but cool scene after this guy saws... Because the saws go through his fingers down his arm.
Yeah.
And then he holds it up, and you can see there's 2 halves of his arm. It's gross, but... as a person who loves effects like that, I'm like, yeah, good job.
So that's basically the traps that are in this movie.
Yeah, it's very standalone compared to the other movies. It's not really tied into anything. It's just these people
really
have to go through.
Though.
It's pretty cool. Meanwhile, Strom has been... Sorry, do you want to...
Strom's been following Hoffman, eventually catches up to him and is like, you're the one that's, doing all this and I can prove it and blah, 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 blah. And Hoffman's been setting up Strom to make everybody think that now Strom's the new Jigsaw guy.
Right. And the evidence, because he's calling the detectives and hanging up and shutting off the phone. So everybody why is Strom being so weird? He must be the Jigsaw killer.
Right.
But it's Hoffman.
Right. And they get in this huge fight of where, Jigsaw, his voice is your only way to survive is to get in this box of glass. And, Strom's like, fuck that, I'm not doing that.
Yeah.
And he pushes Hoffman into it. Turns out that was a safe place. The room pulls a Star Wars and starts closing in and crushes Strom.
Right.
Bye, Luke.
Oh, I love the ending of that movie, but I hate to see
that's
Strom
such a good character.
I love Strom.
I hate Hoffman. Yeah.
Yeah, Hoffman. So Saw 6, this one, again, we're trying to be quick here. So this one, we have this guy denied John Kramer healthcare because he's like, we're trying to make money here. We're not trying to help people.
So this is the insurance healthcare movie.
Yeah, and this came out in 2009, I think.
Yes.
So this was the healthcare crisis and the financial crisis was going on at this time.
Mm-hmm.
So he has to go through this thing where, hey, your insurance policy states that healthy people who aren't likely to need assistance are going to receive your financial care. So now you have to choose between 2 people, usually, one of whom is not who you should be saving, and the other one
is a less desirable candidate.
Right, but they have
Yeah, the beginning of this movie, as all Saw movies have, it has the trap of you have 2 people, and they have vices on their heads that will screw screws into their temples and kill them in a certain amount of time if they do not fill up the bucket with this, a certain amount of weight.
Yeah.
All they have is cutting tools and their body. So they're made to cut pieces of themselves off to weigh it, and they have to get to it faster than the other person.
Right, whoever does it first lives.
And, one of them's this really big guy, so he just starts hacking his fat off and putting it in there, and you think he's going to win. Meanwhile, this crazy bitch in the other room just, hacks her arm off and puts it in there and wins.
Right.
Fuck that. This is the trap that I'm like, never. No. I'd rather die.
Okay.
I have a thing about losing limbs, and never.
I would love to be put in this trap because I would be able to beat it easily.
Why?
Just put the tools in there. Just you have knives, just throw them down.
What if they don't weigh enough?
I don't know. I'm sure there's debris around.
Then there's nothing.
I guess, but then you just die. Whatever.
You're on a time crunch.
Yeah. So, that's the opening to this movie.
Right. So
again, it doesn't really tie in.
No. So the insurance guy is now being put through these tests.
Yeah.
He has the one where he has to pick. He either has to pick the old lady to live,
or a young man,
or the young man. The young man, doesn't have a family and blah, 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 blah. Meanwhile, the old lady has a family that she's taking care of and whatever, and he ends up choosing her.
He has to, hold them both up, and he lets go of the one that's holding up the man.
And it hangs him.
Yeah. Then the next one, I don't remember the next one. Is that the one where the woman is down, and he has to, follow her on the catwalks? There's, a boiler room?
Yes.
Okay, I don't remember if that's next, but at some point, he has to, guide this woman to the end of a room from the top, and there's, scalding hot steam, which he can divert to himself and hurt himself,
right?
To let her get through. And then I guess at the end she has to kill him. Is that her thing? Kill him or else you die, because she has a device on her thing which will impale her. I don't remember exactly.
Is that this movie or is it the next movie?
Definitely this one.
Okay.
So he does that, and he's able to he isn't able to save her. He gets her to the end of the room, but she ends up dying because of the thing, because she doesn't kill him.
Right.
Then there's a carousel.
Yeah, let's talk about this one, because this is what this specific movie is known for.
Right.
It's one of those playground merry-go-rounds that you would find that kids would just stand on and it would go around.
Right,
so he's got the 6 people from his office.
It Saw 6.
Oh, that's good.
Saw 5. There were 5 people in the game.
You're right.
You're
right. Okay, so we have these 6 people.
Let's see, what's in 4? Let's talk everything that happened in 4 and find the number 4.
So, it's this insurance guy. These are his people who decide, who dig through the cases and we don't have to cover them because of this.
Yeah.
Which I fucking deal with on a daily basis at my job.
Yeah.
And so, fuck those people. They can all die.
Wow.
Anyway, so he gets to save 2 of them.
Right,
and that's it.
The thing is, he's able to, crush... If he puts his hand in and it, crushes or impales his hands or whatever, and he has 2 hands, so he can do that twice, and that'll stop the shotgun from shooting 2 people. Otherwise, it will shoot whoever it's aimed at.
Right. So everybody starts I have a family, I'm pregnant, I'm, all these other things.
He ends up saving, 2 random ones. And this is the trap that, for me, it seems like obviously I'd have a hard time with, but it's the kind of thing where I think that I would save the first 2 people. Then
I would do exactly what this guy did.
And then try to save the 3rd person. He never tries to save 3 people. I don't know how he would do that, but just do your best. And then after that, be I saved everyone that I could save.
You can't cheat. You cannot cheat.
No.
Saw.
That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying take the decision away. I'm not making the decisions here. I'm saving as many people as I can. I saved the first 2 people, and I'm going to keep trying to save people. And if I can't, that's on whoever built this trap. That's what I would do. I'm not making the decision to spare or not spare anyone.
It's his choice.
Okay,
that's what the game is. You can't cheat it. It's not like he could put his shoe in there and it would say, oh, I can't fire because this thing's in my way.
You don't know.
Jigsaw knows, and you cannot cheat a jigsaw trap.
If I were in that scenario,
we were in it. We were in it, and the voice told us if we were doing something wrong.
Right. I'm saying a jigsaw situation.
Whatever.
Yeah, so...
I think you're wrong.
Okay, so ends up, he saves 2 people. Then he goes on to the end of the movie where, I guess, he just comes up on his sister who's there. And
right, and another family, a mother and a son who,
their father was...
husband was denied health coverage from this guy. Right. So it's now the son's choice to keep to kill this guy because he ostensibly kills his father by not giving him health insurance, or will he let him live?
And he lets him die. And it seems to have no repercussions for this family. It's not like it also kills
very
them.
Odd. Yeah.
And also, like, what did they do to be put in a trap? They just had somebody in their life die. It seems like they're getting really fast and loose with the cherish your life motto. Meanwhile, Hoffman turns out, like, there's a little bit more suspicion. There's, like, another Detective Perez who we haven't talked about. She was in the 5th one. She's also suspicious of Hoffman, and she's, like, alerting all the other detectives, like, Hoffman's probably got something shady on. So Hoffman's trying to stay ahead of them. He's found out, and he ends up killing the detectives and running. But then Jill Tuck, John Kramer's wife, has also been She's been getting, like, she got a box from John Kramer, and she's been going through her whole
setting
story.
Up traps because this is her test from John. So.
Yeah. And her final test is to put Hoffman in the reverse bear trap, and the ending of the movie is him getting put in the reverse bear trap, and you're like, oh, we're finally going to see it work, because in the first movie we didn't see it work. And then he is able to break out of I think he, like, breaks his hand to, like, get out of the straps that he's in, and he's able to go to the door, which is barred. The window's barred for some reason, and luckily it's barred, and luckily it's horizontal. A lot of luckilies here. And luckily they're strong enough to support when this thing finally does break open. It doesn't
get stopped by the bars, and so he can then slide his head out.
And he screams and he's bleeding. Another really great ending. Yeah. Every one of these movies ends in a great way. I love Saw. I love Saw so much. But then we get to the one that I hate.
Saw 3D.
This is the 7th movie.
2010.
2010. They called this one the final chapter because the last one, the 6th one, made so much less money than the others that they were like,
okay, I guess
we can make one more, but this is going to be it. And oh God, did they phone it in for this one.
Yep. We have a saw trap in public.
Right. It opens up, again, completely unrelated to anything, doesn't tie in. Doesn't make sense. How did they set this up? When did they set this up? Did nobody see them?
How did nobody stop this?
Yeah, it's stupid. But there's, like, these two guys, these two bros who are like, they see this, so they're tied up and they have, like, these saws in front of them, spinning saw blades aimed at themselves. There's two of them. And also strung up on the ceiling is this woman.
There's only one saw.
Whatever. Then this woman who's like, you were... well, she was ostensibly dating both of them and cheating on them, I guess.
Right.
And so they have to, like,
so one of them has to die. Either the girl or one of the guys has to die. Somebody's going to die here today, and they can decide if it's going to be...
They have to, like, try to push the saw.
You can decide to kill the other guy, or both of you can decide to kill her since she's, cheating on both of you anyway.
Which is what they do. And there's intestines that fly at the camera in 3D.
Right, so they kill the girl, which is what they should have done.
Okay. And then that doesn't matter. So let's move on to the rest of the movie, which now we
have this, like, support group of survivors of the jigsaw puzzles.
Yeah.
So, like, those people at the end of Saw 5, the two who survived, who gave their blood, they did survive. So they're in the group.
One of whom was Julie Benz, by the way, from Dexter.
Right. The girl who cut off her arm to, put into the weight thing to win it, she's there. And we also find that
Dr.
Wesley is
Lawrence
there.
Gordon, he's survived, which I don't know if that was ever... it was a mystery. It was definitely hanging...
it was a mystery.
But we never knew what happened to him after he left the bathroom from the first movie. He's there, and he's like, well, he kind of alludes to the fact that the guy
leader,
who's running this support group is kind of using it for publicity for his book that he wrote about this event where he was put in a saw trap and had to stick hooks into his chest and hoist himself up in order to survive.
And so he's
going on this TV thing. He's written a book. He's making a ton of money off of this event.
And Gordon calls him out like, I don't think you really did this.
Right. He's like, I think you're a charlatan. Turns out he is a charlatan. And he gets put in a trap where...
series of traps.
Again, like Jeff and like Easton from the other... His name was William Easton, by the way, the insurance guy.
Gotcha.
From all these other movies, he has to go through this thing and, like, make decisions and everything.
It's got one of your favorite ones.
I don't know favorite.
The one that you definitely can't watch.
It's horrific. So there's the publicist for his book has been helping him speak out, so she has to be silent. And the thing is, if her voice levels go up too high, these spikes will kill her in her neck.
Through the neck.
But the reason she has to be quiet is because there's a key that'll unlock her in her stomach attached to a string. Sounds fine. but there's also a fish hook. And so he has to pull the string with the fish hook in it out, like up through her mouth and get the key. So yeah, Bluck, right? I literally, this is one of the only moments throughout this entire series that I'm like, oh, this is disgusting. Like this one messes with me. So there's that. There's also one where I don't remember what he has to do, but like this woman is about to get punctured through the eyes and he has to stop it somehow. He doesn't. He has to like lift something up and it's stabbing him in the side.
Yeah, raises and he gets stabbed in the side. Right. She dies too.
Yeah, I don't think he saves anyone in this movie.
No.
What else? Oh, there's also the guy who he has to like guide through because he can't see, I think, and he has to like guide through this like beams that are high rise.
Right, and he ends up dying too. He gets hanged.
Right.
So he's helped no one.
The final thing.
Meanwhile, his wife is there, who's done nothing fucking wrong.
Right, she's like a complete innocent, but she's put in this trap, and like she doesn't have to do anything.
And she can't do anything to save herself. That's what I hate about a saw trap is if you can't save yourself.
Right. If there's something you can do, it's like, oh, could I do it? But with this woman, it's like, well, what?
She's nothing she can. She has to rely on somebody else.
Yeah. So she's been watching the whole time, and he gets there, and he's like, okay, to save your wife, you have to do the thing that you... This is so obviously, like, of course, this is going to be the thing. Mm-hmm. You have to do the thing that you've been saying that you did, which is stick these hooks in and lift yourself up. So he tries to do it, and he's unable. It, like, breaks. It's disgusting, and he falls.
And she gets, like, trapped into this
brazen
inferno.
Bowl. Yeah, this brazen bowl, which is one of the worst ways to die, I think.
And burns to death.
Which, why? Because he failed? Why not kill him?
Right.
It doesn't make sense. But he loses. What happens to him? What happens to him? The guy. We don't know. It's left open.
Meanwhile, Hoffman and Jill are like at each other's throats trying to literally kill each other.
Yeah, this is like a cat and mouse game, which could have been cool, but they just didn't do this movie very well. There's this whole thing where early in the movie there was this setup where there was Chester Bennington, is that his name, from Fall Out Boy? I don't know.
What?
Well, I don't remember what band he's from. Nine Inch Nails? No, not Nine Inch Nails.
I don't know who you're talking about.
But he's in the car. They got the car scene.
The trap.
Right. So he's glued to the thing, and he has to like unglue himself and like stop the car, emergency brake, or else the car will
slam onto this
fall down and kill his girlfriend, I think, who's there. And the car is also chained up to this guy, his arms and his jaw, much like Troy.
Will rip off because the car will go forward and
then slam into a guy on the garage door. He's unable to do it. All four of them people die. Doesn't really matter, except Hoffman, who's I guess there because he set this thing up. He's Jigsaw now. He switches bodies with the guy who got his arms and jaw torn off and hides out in a body bag and is taken to the morgue. And once he's there in the thing, while the other detectives are trying to solve other cases, he sneaks out, goes on a killing spree, killing everyone in this police department to get to Jill. This is why he did that, to get into the department. Because he obviously couldn't walk in.
Quarantined to
she's been locked up because they think she's the new Jigsaw or she knows something. Hoffman, since everybody knows who he is, can't just walk into the department, so that's why he did this whole thing. And he ends up getting to Jill, and he does it. He like captures her, puts her in the reverse bear trap, and finally, after all this time, we get to see it work, and Jill Tuck dies.
Yeah, her face gets just blown to pieces.
And Hoffman... right. Okay.
I have a note about the teeth. I don't even know what that means.
The teeth.
Like someone has to pull their teeth out
yeah. I guess that was part of... Oh, right. So I guess in order to get to his... Maybe this was the sixth one? Or are you sure this was this one?
I wrote it down on this one.
So in order to get to like the end with his wife, one of his vignettes is... And it doesn't involve anyone else, I think. He just has to like punch a code into a door to get through.
Oh, and the code is on these two teeth. Let me tell you...
That are in his mouth. Like his real teeth.
Yeah. Let me tell you what's everything wrong with this scene.
This is going to be an hour and a half long
for those of you who don't
episode,
know, I am a dental assistant.
Right.
I am in the dental field. You could never do this.
Yeah, this is... And even...
How to do this, you would have to extract the teeth whole, which in itself is hard.
Yeah.
The numbers are written on the root of the tooth.
How?
How? I don't... They could be tattooed on there.
Maybe.
Those teeth would then have to be inserted back into his mouth.
Yeah.
And so for him to then take them out again would be nothing.
Right. And also, he would definitely know that that's happened.
Right. Because you'd be bleeding in so much pain. Yeah.
It's one of the stupidest things.
Like, that would never happen.
Yeah.
And I never usually try to say that about horror movies,
Especially,
except I do. But
like, these movies are pretty, like, ridiculous.
right, and I just kind of go along with it. But this, I was like, that would never happen.
Why?
Especially because he's in such turmoil to try and rip these teeth out.
Yeah, and he, like, is like, ah, and, like, screaming in pain. It just doesn't make any sense. It's stupid. So there's that. And then we don't know
good try, Saw. You didn't get it past me.
I don't know. So the final thing that happens is Hoffman ends up getting abducted by more people, and we find out that one of those people is Dr. Lawrence Gordon from the first movie and from earlier in this movie, who you thought was back just for, like, that cameo.
Yeah, that shits and giggles.
But now
I get it, because he was in the shit room.
I guess, Jed, yeah. But it turns out he is also an accomplice and has been ever since the second movie, and he's been helping Jigsaw this whole time, which is a really cool twist, and does actually make sense, because in, like, the second movie, we see whoever is put, like, the guy with the Venus flytrap, we see, like, a scene of him getting the key inserted behind his eye, and the guy who's doing it has a limp. So that's a fun little detail.
But it's like all these surgical parts, like the people who had their eyes sewn shut,
everything
surgically, in their mouths.
Because if you think about it, John Kramer's not a surgeon. He wouldn't be able to do these things.
And have people survive.
Right. So it does make sense, even though it's a little bit like, why didn't anyone know about this before? Like, Hoffman didn't know. So he gets... What happens to Hoffman? Why am I blanking on what happens to Hoffman? Why don't you tell me what?
I don't know what happens to
right.
Hoffman.
He gets put in, because it goes back to the beginning. Oh, this is actually another great ending. Even a terrible movie has a great ending. Hoffman puts him in the shit room from the first movie.
Oh, yeah.
And he chains him up. And
there's just these decrepit bodies.
Yep.
Wesley's foot is still there.
Yeah, and he, like, winks at it or, like, nods to it or something. It's funny. So Hoffman immediately grabs for the hacksaw that's there, but Gordon grabs it and says,
like, Not
I don't
this
think
time.
so. Yeah. And he throws it into the outside. This is a little stupid. He throws it because it's 3D. He throws it right into the camera. Right. And then I think he says game over, right? He has to, right?
Yeah.
Okay, he says game over, and he leaves Hoffman stranded there. That's the end of the movie. So his death is kind of open-ended. We never see him die, but he never shows up again.
But that's the end of Saw.
Well...
Until 7 years later.
Until... Jigsaw, which
out.
I was so excited for.
I was too. I never saw it in theaters.
Yeah, I saw it on Amazon Prime.
Yeah, so we weren't that excited.
Yeah, and it's an alright movie.
It's good. Came out in 2017.
Yeah.
I call this Barn Saw.
Yeah, it does seem to all take place in this. It does take place in, like, a
We're gonna
barn.
very broadly talk about this one because you watch it on your own. It's completely separate from Saw. I think
it's kind of just like a weird tangent.
It's basically some people think that John Kramer's still alive because all of a sudden these Saw things are happening again, and it ends up just being somebody who was obsessed with Saw and was going to speak out for the dead because somebody else was
Not exactly.
Was being framed for whatever.
No, John Kramer did his first game ever, which was putting another, like, 5 people through this, like, series of tests. And one of them it's really stupid. One of them survived and
became his first apprentice.
Right, but, like, it was, like, the beginning of the game. One of them got wounded and made it through, but then John immediately showed up and pulled him out of the game and was like, I've had a change of heart, and, like, you're now going to be my apprentice. And it was his first apprentice, before Amanda, and before Hoffman, and before even Lawrence Gordon, which I shouldn't say even, because he was later, but it's still kind of really stupid, and, so this guy has been, it's a dumb twist, I hate it so much, but he's been this is one of the movies that I don't like the ending. Yeah. He was part of it the whole time. There's this whole thing where the detectives are trying to figure out who it is, and it turns out to be this guy, and they frame somebody else for it.
Right.
And also, in the game, they're trying to get out, and there's some cool stuff in there, but none of it matters. And it doesn't make sense, because that was all revealed to be part of the first game that he did 10 years ago. But there's, like, things like a plasma screen TVs and, like, you know, neon lights showing up everywhere. Like, stuff that wouldn't have been able to be around at that time. So it doesn't make sense.
Right.
But...
it's still a fun movie.
Yeah, I don't really like it that much, but I hope they make more. They're supposed to be making another movie,
right? But
who knows?
Well, I think it's pretty explanatory about what makes it scary.
Yeah, it's pretty obvious. Which, because of how there's also other stuff we want to do.
Yeah, what makes it scary is that you're put to the limit of what you think you're capable of. doing.
Yeah, I wanted to briefly talk a little bit about like why this movie became so important for the culture. Like, why were people so drawn to this horrific, what gave rise to the torture porn subgenre of horror movies. So this movie, the first one came out in 2004. And the president in 2004 was George Bush. And what had just happened was 9/11. And as a result of 9/11, we obviously started the war in Iraq and everything. And one of the main things that happened was the Bush administration signed off on and agreed to what became known as enhanced interrogation techniques. Basically, the reason that, like, you've heard about, like, the CIA torturing and waterboarding people, it's a result of 9/11, and it's this stuff happening. All of this happened before Saw. Now, 9/11 changed things in a pretty fundamental way in terms of how horror was received, because and not just horror, like all movies. Like, movies had to be either very, very, like, grounded and real, or they had to be incredibly fanciful. There was no, like, in between, because people just had such a different reaction to things post 9/11. And one of those ways was Saw, because this came out in a time where the world was so hearing in the news about these terrible things that the United States was doing to its own citizens in some cases.
Right.
People were ready for, I think, you couldn't have a horror movie like Friday the 13th Part 4, where the most graphic thing is somebody takes a cleaver to the face and there's like a little blood sprinkle and you cut and everyone's like, oh no! Yeah. People don't care anymore. They turn on the news. Things are so much horrific, more horrible than anything you could see on TV. So it's like escalation. It's like Batman. Movies had to step it up. Movies had to be like, we need to be worse than the news. And that's something
that's crazy.
That's something that we see today. Like, we see these things in the news, movies have to match them and be worse than them, because if people wanted to be scared, they just turn on their TVs. They don't need to go to the movies to do that. Right. So that's why I think that's why it came at such the right time for people to be like, we kind of need this. It's like catharsis. It's why I'm not going to get into like
music
why we watch.
Music changed around this time,
too.
Yeah. All things. I mean, music became just like, we don't give a fuck anymore. We're going to talk about what we're going to talk about.
Right.
Like, Green Day is a great example of that. American Idiot.
Right.
Changed the game of music, that you can say, like, fuck you to the president. Like, we're not going to stand for this. We don't like that this is going on.
You need to speak out and you need to stand out.
Basically the same thing's happening. The one thing that I just love that came out of this is escape rooms. Escape rooms became a thing because of Saw.
I don't know if it's because of Saw.
I absolutely think it is. You get put in this room, you're trapped there unless you figure it out.
The first movie feels a lot like an escape room.
Oh, for sure.
They find a key. It obviously isn't going to work to what they have now. They find a thing later.
Right.
All right. Well, since this is a long episode anyway, we might as well like extend the fun. Do you want to talk about like what our favorite top five
kills
or traps?
Saw traps.
Okay, the traps, not the kills. Okay.
Not the kills.
All right. So who wants to go first? You go first.
Okay. Mine's in descending order, so like number 5.
Okay. Mine's in no particular order. Oh. I think mine's chronological, actually.
Okay. So my number 5 is Acid Key.
Oh, Detective Carey.
Yeah,
yes.
Which I don't think we talked about. She has to reach up into a vat of acid and get the key out of the bottom to unlock herself.
Right, and her hands like dissolve.
Before this trap that's hooked up to her ribs rips her apart.
You honestly think that this is one of the worst things?
Yeah.
Dipping your hand in acid?
Yeah.
I think I can do it.
No.
I think I can
it looks awful, and I don't think I can do it.
No. Do you have a vat of acid on you? I'll try it right now.
No. So that's my number 5.
Okay.
What's your number 5?
Oh, we want to do that? Okay. So my number 5 is...
think about it. Think about your list.
I know what my list is. I have it now.
Okay.
Okay. Do you want me to tell you the name of the person who's in the trap and you try to guess what the trap is?
Sure.
You don't want to do that?
Go ahead.
Okay. Timothy Young.
That's the twisted.
Yes, that is the rack. That's the one that twists around and like breaks.
Yeah. Not related to Amanda Young.
Not related to Amanda Young, who's also a Young.
Yeah.
That's from Saw 3. So that's my number 5.
Okay. My number 4 would be Key in the eyeball.
Oh, yeah.
From Saw 2.
Right.
That would be mine.
Yeah.
Because
Michael.
Ick.
His name is.
I don't care about people.
Okay. So mine is actually a trap that did not result in a death. I don't know if that's allowed.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because it's the traps.
Amanda Young.
Oh, the reverse bear trap?
Nope.
Actually,
I
the
guess,
syringe pit.
Yeah, I guess technically
Which we didn't talk about either.
It would be, what's his name? I don't remember.
Xavier?
Xavier, yes.
Yeah.
I guess it was his, but he throws Amanda in. It's this pit of needles. Dirty syringes.
Everyone knows this.
How is Amanda not?
They probably weren't dirty.
They were pretty dirty looking anyway. Anyway, she has to
She probably
dive
had a tetanus shot. It's fine.
maybe. She has to dive into a pit of needles and search
just
around
fucking
for
annihilates it.
I get goosebumps every time I think about this one. It's I hate needles, and even if I didn't, this is still pretty messed up. So that's my second.
That's a good one. My number 3 is Twisted Body.
Oh, the Rex.
So that's mine.
Okay.
Timothy Young.
Okay. My number 3 is I guess I don't know if you consider this a trap because it's the end of a movie. It is Eric Matthews.
Oh, Ice Cubes.
The Ice Cubes. The whole situation.
You wouldn't feel anything.
Yeah, I guess it's pretty instant, but I love just the visuals of it,
it's
the way
cool.
that it explodes, and
awesome.
it all so many things are happening at once. It's just very fun.
I guess I didn't pick my favorite traps. I picked the ones I would least likely want to be.
I have that as
that's basically what was my driving force behind my list.
Yeah.
So I guess the worst traps is what this is. My number 2 is blood weight.
Oh yeah.
Where you have to put your hand through the saw, fill it up with blood.
Julie Benz and I don't know the other guy.
Yeah.
Who cares?
Yeah.
Those two. Yeah.
That would be awful.
My number 2, I guess I wrote the swinging pendulum.
Ooh,
Seth Baxter is his name.
Mainly because it's.
I don't remember why I wrote
it's unbeatable?
this. I guess I wrote it because I feel like I could win if it weren't unbeatable. Like if it worked.
Yeah.
I feel like this is doable.
Yeah, I think it is too.
And it's
the reason you picked your list, we should have made why we were picking these.
I do have a worse traps, but it's not top 5. It's just a couple. Okay. And finally?
And my number 1, I would never want to be put in this situation, is fill the bucket with weight.
Oh, yeah. You talked about that.
So, cut off my arm. I would never do that.
And
I would sooner die.
Yeah. And my number 1 really cool one that I think is cool is Strom dying at the end of Saw 5.
Oh, that's
because,
dumb.
And no, it's the walls are closing in is such a cool thing. It's Star
dumb.
Wars.
It's Star Wars and 13 Ghosts. Everybody fucking does it.
Because it's cool. But also you have, I've always liked the idea of a safe, tiny little safe area for some reason. This is really weird. But the idea of and I know that the coffin is lined with glass, which sucks, but if you could lay in this coffin and be safe from a death room, that's cool.
Yeah.
And he survived.
Yeah, the glass would never even bother you because let me tell you, I crawled over a bunch of glass and I didn't feel anything.
And you're fully clothed. You're just lying in there when your whole body weight is against it.
Yeah.
So those are my top 5. My worst ones, just very briefly, I said the eye thing from the Venus flytrap. I don't know if I'd be able to do that. The hand buzzsaw, because just the idea of you have to push your hand into this buzzsaw, it's horrific. And the fish hook with her name is Nina, but the publicist.
Bad too.
It's so not gory, but it's just so horrific.
Yeah.
So that's what makes it scary. What makes it scary? Body horror. Nobody wants to experience
mutilation.
Pain. Mutilation. It's pretty self-explanatory. Yeah. But I wanted to get into all that.
I hope you had
stuff.
Fun.
I had fun, except for some of it.
Yeah. Ugh. Yeah.
It's been a long episode.
I hope I can sleep now.
Oh,
that we're done with this week.
Let's go watch something funny.
Yeah. Well,
let's go watch Scary Movie 4.
Yeah, which makes fun of.
Yeah.
Saw. Cool. That's this week. If you want to tweet at us your favorite Saw movie or your favorite Jigsaw trap, you can tweet at me at clevergirl, the letter F, the letter X.
Clevergirl FX. I am at Mr. spelled the long way, Red 2342. That's at Mr. Red 2342.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to say?
You can comment on any device that you are currently listening to this podcast from.
Yeah. Not your Samsung refrigerator or whatever. I'm sure. Yeah. I don't know if you can get.
I said if you can listen to it, you can comment there, whether it be YouTube, iTunes, or whatever. Please rate us. Please share us.
Yeah. Rate and review. That's the best way. If you like this podcast, if you want us to do more of it, rate and review. And rate and review. Remember to and rate and review. Do that too.
Yeah. Totally. Next week on What Makes It Scary, we are going to the classics of Alfred Hitchcock.
Nice.
Mainly Psycho, but we will be...
Oh, I thought you said Scream again. Sorry, I just got it in my head.
And so we will be talking about Alfred Hitchcock. So if you want to tweet at us what your favorite Hitchcock movie is, you can tweet at me at Clevergirl, the letter F, the letter X.
Okay.
And so we'll be talking about Alfred Hitchcock's. If you want to tweet at us what your favorite Hitchcock movie is, we will take a look at it.
Yeah, definitely. Cool.
All right.
Well, thanks for listening.
Tune in next weekend. Game over.